It was in Pennsylvania I learned firsthand the power of faith. History's shown it can be an incredible unifying force or the justification for unspeakable atrocities. How you see faith as a tool for great evil or great good depends entirely on your point of view. After my experience in the cornfield, hunted by 4 horsemen, this was not what I was expecting to see. This couldn't be the place Edward was running from, could it? People were so calm and content, working together, playing together. For a moment, I actually thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Kissy? Abby wasn't more than 14. Could tell by her earrings. My daughter had the same pair. But Abby had a confidence, a certainty you rarely see in teenagers.
This is New Eden. You've been saved.
She said I was lucky. Not everybody was asked to stay. She wondered what made me so special, and frankly, so did I. Abby wanted to see a picture of my family, but I couldn't find my pack. Got pretty worked up. The thought of losing all my stuff, my journal. Some people you meet, they have an aura about them, a charisma. You just feel at ease. That was JD. His name was John Daggart, founder of New Eden. When he spoke, it was like nothing else mattered but you.
Thank the Lord you're all right.
He apologized for his horsemen, said they're very protective of New Eden, an understatement to be sure. As you can imagine, I had a million questions, but more than anything, I wanted my backpack. According to JD, Edward Hanley took it. I was fortunate, he said. Edward didn't take my life, too. JD said Edward had a good heart, but a bad mind, a weak mind.
Still, it was my fault he ran away. I came down too hard on him for his sins. But how do you forgive a man who tries to destroy paradise?
If I hadn't helped Edward, JD believed he would have been brought back into the fold, given another chance. As it turned out, Edward got away. JD didn't blame me. He said my compassion wasn't a crime, it was a virtue. That's why I'd been saved, brought to New Eden. He wanted to introduce me to the flock, throw a feast in my honor. Sounded inviting, but perfect as this place seemed to be, I couldn't shake that image of Edward.
Keep it safe. It's my only evidence.
What did he mean? Was he just crazy? Or was there something I wasn't seeing beneath the beauty of New Eden? The people most prepared for the fall would have been the Amish, with their avoidance of electricity and all the temptations of a modern world. The New Eden community wasn't Amish, but they adopted the simple way of life, the isolation and self-sufficiency. And like the Amish, New Eden was built around a strong religious faith, part Old Testament, part New Testament, and part Luddite.
God looked down on mankind, and he was angry. We took our faith from him and put it in technology, a false idol. So he raised up his mighty hand, and he smote it all.
Amen.
JD believed the fall was Judgment Day, end times. He said God took the good and the bad souls, but left the rest of us behind for a second chance.
Here in New Eden, God's given us all we need to start over again, the right way. He provides us with a bounty from his soil. His horsemen protect us from the savages who cling to the old ways. And all he asks for in return is our faith in his plan. Yet that price is too steep for some.
JD took pity on Edward Hanley, predicting he wouldn't last a day on the outside.
But don't take my word for it. Let our new friend here tell us what lies beyond.
Many in New Eden had been there since the place was formed. Some were growing restless and curious about what JD called the wasteland. JD told me not to pull punches, said his flock deserved the truth, so I gave it to them, gory details and all. That's where he cut me off.
You heard the man. Stealing and murder are a way of life out there.
I tried to explain that there were still good people out there, people trying to restore order, learn from our mistakes. But hearing my own words that night, I realized JD was right. The world outside was a dangerous place. It made me wonder what the hell I was doing trying to cross the country alone. Still, when the service ended, I told JD I had to pass on the feast. I just wanted to get home to my family.
Wow, I always wanted to see the West Coast.
JD said he understood my wanting to leave, that New Eden would pray for me. But he had a question for me about the fall.
What do you believe, Russ?
I told him what I knew about the EMP and the Speaker of the House, but without my backpack, I had no proof. JD didn't mince words. He said I was wrong. What happened was not the man-made disaster I'd come to believe. It was divine intervention.
And I have proof.
Should have left, like I said. But I wasn't so different from those in New Eden. Part of me wanted to believe a simpler truth like they did. Believe I had been saved by God Himself. For weeks, I'd been hearing all sorts of theories about the fall. According to JD, God took away everything, people and technology. He wiped the slate clean so we could start over, put our faith back in Him, not machines. I was skeptical, to say the least, but as I listened to JD's story, I saw parallels to my own life.
I was a workaholic. I made good money selling life insurance, but spent more time on the road than at home. I took my family for granted.
When his wife got fed up and left him, she took custody of their son, Jonah.
That was my wake-up call. Work meant nothing. The only thing I lived for was the one day a week I got my boy.
Hearing JD go on about their Sunday fishing trips, I was jealous. Never had a ritual like that with Kizzy. Every parent's worst nightmare is losing a child.
Imagine seeing your pride and joy disintegrate. Right before your eyes.
JD did what I would have done. Lost all hope. Hit rock bottom.
God. Why me? Once I realized how many had been taken, I finally understood God's plan. He was giving me a second chance. That's why He led me here. To save the lost. New Eden is my redemption.
And JD was offering a simple explanation that only required faith in a higher power. That's what brought people to New Eden. They stayed because he had proof. Was it just another Virgin Mary on a grilled cheese sandwich? Or was it a genuine glimpse of the Almighty? I have to admit, I started to wonder if there really were forces at work, forces beyond my comprehension.
What other explanation is there?
JD had me reeling. My skepticism was on the ropes. So he invited me to stay, as long as I wanted. I questioned everything. Was the fall divine intervention? Then, miraculously, as I wrestled with that question, I was saved by Luther, who told me JD's story was a lie. For all JD's talk about faith, he had none for his followers. After all, faith that has to be enforced isn't faith, it's dogma. And dogma breeds defiance. Such was the case in New Eden. Luther's motive was simple. He wanted me to help him escape. Wasn't sure he could make it out there alone. I knew it was a risk trusting Luther. Edward Hanley taught astronomy at Rutgers. JD had forbidden contact with the outside world, so Edward kept his hobby a secret, until Edward saw something that raised doubts.
If God smote technology, why'd he leave a working satellite up there?
This changes everything. Edward was punished for questioning JD, the worst sin possible in New Eden. The satellite not only proved some technology survived, it proved JD was intolerant of anything threatening his beliefs. What it didn't prove was that the man was a murderer. But when I saw the remains of that star chart, I knew.
Keep it safe. It's my only evidence.
Edward didn't escape like JD said. He'd been caught, his evidence confiscated.
Saw JD burn it last night. Probably killed Edward just to shut him up.
Truth was, Luther's evidence required a leap of faith just like JD's. A light in the sky and a burned piece of paper wasn't much to go on. I finally saw JD for what he was, a grieving father who'd convinced himself the fall was a divine event.
They're getting away!
Because the truth meant he was alone, without answers, like the rest of us. And that's a scary place to be. JD had the faith of his followers, and since I had forbidden knowledge, I was now the enemy.
I warned you this day would come. There is a demon among us. A deceiver who will destroy everything we've built. And his name is Shoemaker.
I think it was Emerson who said, "To different minds, the same world is heaven and hell." When I first arrived in New Eden, I was entranced by the beauty, the serenity. 48 hours later, my frame of mind had changed dramatically. JD hadn't just brought me in to help him sell the virtues of New Eden. He wanted to convert me, turn me into a true believer, not just to grow his flock, but to control his flock. The more who believed his story, more real it became, to him and his followers. I think JD deluded himself into believing he was chosen. And that's what made him truly dangerous. Luther told others about the satellite, but no one else wanted to hear the truth. And why would they? JD's story gave them hope of salvation. All those true believers, I knew I couldn't take away their faith, but I could take away JD's ability to deceive more followers. Maybe it was my own foolish pride, maybe it was just those earrings. I couldn't resist trying to save Abby. Should have known, you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Luther and I both knew damn well what would happen if they caught us. Sometimes fear is a good thing. It pushes you beyond your own bounds, to a place where a million years of survival instincts kick in. Where you don't have to think about your actions. Where something higher takes over, spurs you to victory, if that's what's meant to be. I was hoping to loosen JD's stranglehold on his flock. All I really did was strengthen his grip. No more demons in the cornfield. I gave JD a real flesh and blood villain to unite his flock against, and he gave me all the evidence I needed to call him my enemy. JD proclaimed it a battle between good and evil. Who was good? Who was evil? As with everything, that depends entirely on your point of view.